And I mean, just just kind of a mind-blowing concept, dude. If this thing was like a 12 to 15-foot giant and they were theoretically living inside of a cave, maybe even inside of Hollow Earth, like imagine how big some of these damn caves could be. Like we think Mammoth Cave is huge, man, but like imagine how big some of these like ridiculously deep subterranean caves go. Like, I mean, in Indonesia, you have caves that have their own like weather systems. Like, imagine what could potentially exist below the surface that we just aren't able to get access to. And even if these giants do have entrances all over the world to get into these areas, like they're significantly bigger than us. They're significantly stronger than us. How easy is it for them just to roll a giant boulder in the way of a doorway? And we would have no idea that it was there and never even fathom moving it because it's just, okay, we can't move that. It's a ridiculously big boulder. You know, even if they had a boulder that took two giants to move, dude, there could be blocked off entrances to these ridiculous places all over the place, and we'd have no idea because we just assume that the rock was there and we can't fucking move the rock because we can't get machinery in there to move the damn rock.
Well, and something that kind of popped into my head while you were just talking about all the cave entrances and whatnot. This is taking a little bit of a tangent, but I promise I'm gonna bring it back around.
We'll hop back into it in a second.
But I'm sure most of our listeners at this point have seen, like on Instagram or whatnot, the diagram that has like the map of missing persons reports, and then overlaid with like the cave system map and how they line up. And a particular story that popped into my head that David Paulides covers in The Missing 411. I believe it's in the books and the documentary, if I'm not mistaken. It was about a boy named Dennis Martin, I believe was his name. I've got a book about it. I should have grabbed it. But this was a little boy in Tennessee. This happened in, I believe, the late 60s. Went missing in, one of these cave system areas, and people that were in the area at the time said that they saw like a big hairy man carrying something over his shoulder. So, a lot of people go with like a Sasquatch type angle with that. What if it's like these giants? And, that whole East Tennessee, Western North Carolina area is kind of known for like these feral people populations that, supposedly live in these national parks. So I just wonder if, all this stuff kind of intersects there, and maybe a lot of these disappearances, like you said, are due to these cave systems and possibly these giants living in them and traveling from place to place via these cave systems.
Dude, wouldn't it be cool if you'd be able to actually research this as far as Afghanistan goes? Because so many people go missing there. It's not like they're taking reports on all this. But I guarantee you, if you made like an overlay map for Afghanistan, you'd probably be pretty damn surprised at what you come up with. And I mean, even getting into that like feral concept, I just want to throw this one in there. That, you take a pig and you leave it out in the woods, it's going to start developing hair all over. So it'll like start to go primal. So connecting with like these Afghanistan giants versus like Sasquatch in the United States, for example, in the middle of the desert, besides at night when it's cold, when assumably these things are probably in their caves, it's a hotter climate. They don't have a reason to fully develop hair all over their body. But when you're talking about like the Midwest, when you're talking about the northern colder regions, it would make sense to develop hair all over your body, even if you're inside of these caves. These caves are colder because they're not retaining that heat from during the day like they would be getting in the desert. So, I mean, you could be looking at the same thing, just two different variations because one just needed to develop more hair in order to keep itself warm. I mean,
yeah, for sure. So not to, derail us again, but I was just kind of flipping through some of my notes. And when I was doing some research on the whole Giants thing, when we were initially planning to do this episode, I came across a podcast. It's Blurry Creatures. I think we're both fans of that show.
Love Blurry Creatures. Those guys are the best.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys should check that show out. If you're listening to this, you'll totally dig their show. But anyway, it was episode 128 of their show. They had a gentleman on. His name was Mark A. Carpenter. And he kind of suggested that there's a connection between not only like giants and Nephilim, but also possibly like Wendigo lore. And that, maybe this does, tie in with the whole missing 411 thing. And possibly these giants are almost like an invasive species that is almost hunting humans down, like you said, like a predator, and taking these people into their underground cave systems. And, that could even go into like the whole like weather manipulation thing with, missing persons cases. So definitely check that episode out. It's been a while since I listened to it, but I just came across those notes, and it ties right in with what we were talking about. So
Didn't we make some theories in our Wendigo episode that they could potentially be like malnourished, like starving giants to begin with? So we were already kind of coming around to that a long time ago.
when we were talking about Wendigos, because I think it was about the time we did that episode when I listened to this podcast, and it tied in perfect with that, and it ties in perfect with this too. So
All interesting. Dude, there's just so many different components to it and so many different rabbit holes you could fall down to this that it's just like, who knows which one's the correct one, but they're definitely all different things you have to take into consideration when you're looking at giants, Sasquatch, Wendigo, just all the connecting factors between things. Like there's so many connecting factors that they're hard to ignore after a certain point when you're researching into this stuff.
Well, and with a lot of paranormal, high strangeness type stuff, I feel like, we say all the time, nobody's right, nobody's wrong, but, I kind of do think some people are a little more right than others about some of this stuff. But when it comes to like this whole giant thing, I think a lot of the theories, they hold a lot of water. I mean, obviously we don't know what the hell's going on, but everything we've brought up, I think, is a reasonable, rational, quote unquote explanation for a lot of this stuff. But anywho, I'll quit trying to derail you.
One last thing.
Here's an idea. Aliens.
There you go.
Or the Anunnaki. That was like the perfect opportunity to finally use that sound I've had on the board for a while. So I figured I'd take advantage of it.
Well, Anunnaki, Nephilim, tomato at that point. So
same fucking thing.
There you